Now we are going to hear the annual update on the work of the School and Community Relations Department. Dr. Murphy.
Yes, thank you. We've adjusted this a couple of times simply because we've got a number of guests here. We've been joined by two of our elementary school principals, and I want to thank them for coming out, Dr. Lynn Wright and Mr. Colin Brown. And then I'm going to turn to Linda Ertis here. She's distributing some resources to talk about some of the things that we're doing with school community relations, and specifically family engagement.
Okay.
So, Ms. Ertis.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. Tonight, I'm pleased to update you on the work, some of the work, not all of the work, but some of the work of the School and Community Relations Department and what we do to support communications and family engagement in our schools and our departments. Let me see there. I'm going to focus on just 4 key areas. First, the goals and functions overall of the department, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. Instead, I took some of the pieces of what we do and framed it, fitted into a 6-part framework, which you'll see in a moment for family engagement. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how that then trickles down and is used on the school level for school-based family engagement, and some future initiatives that we're looking at. Overall, effective communications and engagement is tied to the work that all of us do. It's not a single department that does it. It happens, or at least it should be happening everywhere to be really effective. If you're a teacher or a principal, you are also a communicator and an engager. If you work in a central office, or if you're a school board member or an assistant superintendent or whomever, we all communicate. We all succeed in our work by effectively communicating with our families and with our community. Communication supports the goals and work of our strategic plan. It helps us to build a greater understanding of our work, and it helps us to build bridges to success. Recognizing the importance of community engagement, more than 10 years ago, the school board adopted a policy, which is School Board Policy 10-9, which emphasizes the importance of communications and engagement to the success of the school division. The Department of School and Community Relations is a conduit to that success. And so what we do is we work to develop and package and present information and materials for a centralized message that we can distribute on behalf of the entire school district. We serve as a centralized source for internal and external communications. If I were in the business sector or even in the nonprofit sector, I would probably be considered a public relations agency for the school division. But we do a whole lot more than that. We support the school-based communications and division-wide initiatives that some of my colleagues on the executive leadership team work on. And obviously, in the end, we work to support the goals and the work of the achievement of the strategic plan. Here's a list, and it's a long list, and I'm not going to go through it, but I put it up there just to remind that there are many things our department does, from media relations to emergency communications, the print shop, a whole lot of stuff. I'm not going to go through all of those tonight, but I did want to put them up there to say that there is a broad range of things that we do. In communications, there is no one-size-fits-all. Every community here in Arlington and throughout the country approaches communications differently. And we are mindful of that and respectful of that. And we work to support our schools to develop tools that fit their needs and their preferences. So as we look at the framework that I'm going to speak to tonight, this is a framework for family engagement. It's based on the work by a very well-known woman that most of you have probably read of, Dr. Joyce Epstein. She's a sociologist, and she's the director of the Center of School and Family and Community Partnerships at Johns Hopkins. Her basic model has been adopted by the National PTA standards, the Center for Public Education, the School Community Network, the U.S. Department of Education references her work, as well as the Virginia Department of Education. It's a pretty standard framework. So tonight I want to connect some of the key components of the things that my department does to support schools to that framework to sort of position the kinds of things we do. Research shows that the most effective way to communicate is face-to-face communications. But the reality is none of us can talk with 23,000 people face-to-face every day. And so that happens on a daily basis in our schools and in a variety of ways. So let me take you through the first one, and that's parenting and family support. I would say the strongest place where this happens is in the schools, because the people that the parents see day in and day out are their principals and their teachers. They're not seeing me, and they sometimes see us in schools at school events, but the day in, day out. So a number of years ago, we felt that school leaders and teachers needed some resources. And so we have made available over about the last 4 years some resources for teachers. We purchased a book that was put together by the National School Public Relations Association for teachers. It's called Making Parent Communication Effective and Easy. And this goes through everything from back to school nights to day-to-day and weekly communications. Every new teacher to Arlington Public Schools during the teacher orientation week receives a copy of this as support for their work. In addition, all of our schools have a set of these for their Media Resource Center, and I've had some principals say they use this to plan their back-to-school nights or other family events. The second group who are critical to our work are our administrators. And all principals have received Principals in the Public and Engaging Community Support as a resource for them for ideas of how to approach it. Once again, every school is different, and every school chooses to come at develop plans or programs that fit their community's needs. So those are available, and new principals new to the job all receive a copy of this. We have copies for the new principals coming on board this year, and make that available. Another critical step in the family support is registration. When people come to Arlington Public Schools, sometimes they don't know where to begin. So my office tries to do some of the central work. And so we put together all of the registration information. We manage the website for the parents to help them navigate. In addition, we create a lot of materials in multiple languages for families to give them tools to sort of know how to go through the process. We host with the County Council of PTAs the information nights. This year we had 1,240 people at the kindergarten night. We had 1,100 people at the middle school information night and 875 at high school information. Part of that declining number, I think, is also because choices are declining as families get to high school. We do a lot of presentations, and Gladys Bourdoin specifically in my office does presentations in some of the private and community preschools to go in and talk to parents even before that kindergarten information night to help them start navigating the website and the materials available. This year we started doing some academic planning sessions in collaboration with colleagues in the Department of Student Services to start helping parents plan that, okay, what do I need to be thinking of as I go? And Dr. Murphy has been actively involved in that. We have, a number of years ago, we started the Parent Academy. This year, in the 2012-13 school year, we had 125 courses that we promoted throughout the year. Some of our partners with the Parent Academy include Departments of Instruction and Student Services, the APS Parent Resource Center, the Department of Human Services. If there are things that we think they're doing that would be invaluable to our parents, we help promote that. And then the Arlington Family Network, which is our network of PTAs in the high schools, offer courses. The second part of this framework, and it's probably the part that my department is most heavily involved in, is the communication with families. We don't do all of the individual communications, but we certainly work to provide as many tools as possible so that schools can choose. School Talk, website, social media, AETV. A year and a half ago, we instituted Language Line, and it's in all 40 of our schools, so that if somebody walks in, and we have had cases where a parent walks in and they don't speak that language, our schools can pick up a phone, get a translator on the line within a minute or two, and a conversation begins. In one of our schools, a parent showed up for a meeting with the teacher, and the translator was not there. So they called Language Line, got a translator, because the father had taken off from work to be there. Obviously, emergency communications is a key function, and when Lieutenant Babcock was here this evening, it was nice to see him, because we work closely with the police and the county to coordinate that. And then a lot of printed materials, as I mentioned. Let me give you a glimpse at School Talk from just last year to this year, even though we've had the service in place now for about 7 years. About a year and a half ago, with Dr. Murphy's support, we really started emphasizing that this was not just a district tool, that it was something that schools can and should be using. And so you can see here our monthly messages. Last year, there were 34 in a month. This year, we're at 53 for a month. But when we look at schools' individual messages, that's jumped from 107 in a month to 189. I have, as administrator, get every School Talk message, which is sort of interesting. But last week alone, I got 65 emails. 5 of them were district messages. 60 were from the individual schools. It's actively being used. Some of the schools also use the telephone, and similarly at home, I come home and I usually have 5 or 6 voicemail messages. Some Dr. Vilan Sanchez in Spanish, so I don't really understand what they're saying, but there are messages coming out from the schools to parents, because some communities prefer that method. And then today I received 2 texts from schools reminding parents about early release. So the schools use it in a variety of ways. We have provided training now to all of our schools, so they have someone in the school that can handle it, although we step in an emergency and support them. Parent Resource Center staff have been trained and use it frequently. Gifted Resource Supervisor and staff have been trained on it and can use it. The Early Childhood Supervisor just got training and can now use it. Transportation Services has also been trained to use it. And so annually, that's what our total number of messages look like across the county. The website is just it continues to be a first point that parents have a tendency to go to. We're averaging, it's up about 24% monthly, 547,000 visitors every month. That could be you coming back every day or whatever, and so forth. Social media is new this year, and we added it, and it looks like a small number, but quite honestly, for 5 months, it's actually growing. Facebook, we're up to about 1,500 likes, and Twitter, we have about 825 followers. Now, not everybody uses social media, but for a number of our young families, this is another strategy for them to stay connected with what's happening. And this sort of shows you how Facebook growth has grown. You'll see a couple of spikes, and that is a direct correlation between our launch campaign, and then in about April, May, we did a Teacher of the Year and Mother's Day campaign, and it pushed a spike again. And starting today, you'll see on the Facebook page the APS graduates, and we'll be reaching out to families to show us pictures of their graduation and engage with us. This summer, we'll be looking at doing more with summer reading that Dr. Murphy mentioned earlier this evening. And then, of course, as we get ready to back to school, we'll be pushing out messages there as well. And then Twitter, I'm told that the most important part is the 417 retweets when people push it out to people they know, and that really is our value there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is about a year ago, the board passed a policy on school-based social media use. So this was our first year of using it, and schools and teachers registered. We had 279 teachers that are using social media. Most of them are in the high schools, and we have some in middle schools, really none in the elementary. You'll see here at least 17 different social media tools are being used. And the one that fascinated me the most was the top one is YouTube, because they're going in and using videos to stimulate either conversations or dialogue or to show students things. But you can see there how it's being used. Publications, I mentioned, we have a wealth of publications that we either produce fully or we provide support for throughout the county. The third part of that framework is volunteers, and specifically volunteers to support students in our schools. We promote heavily through a lot of ways our APS volunteer opportunities. Some of the schools say, I'm looking for book buddies or tutors or homework help. Or career day speakers. So sometimes we'll push out things to the Chamber of Commerce and so forth. Don Smith in my office will do an initial screening and then connect the person and hand them over to the school, and then the school will work with that volunteer one-on-one, but we maintain the online application and help schools when they're really looking for people. The fourth part of the framework is support for learning at home. Information services and instruction both do a lot of initiatives in this area, and we work to support them. For example, in instruction, about 2 weeks ago, not instruction, information services, Pat Teskey came to me and said, we have an economics and personal finance through virtual at APS, and we've only had 10 people register for it. So we worked with her, put out 2 school talk messages, and she now has 43 students registered very quickly for the course. So we know that by using the tools and working with folks, we can help them meet their goals. Summer school enrollment, we've promoted for families as dates come along and reminders. And then information services, we're working with a lot right now, and I'll talk with shortly as Synergy comes online and the new Parent View. Decision-making is a 5th part, and a lot of my department's work comes in helping members of my colleagues on the board on a number of initiatives. More seats for more students, you may have heard of that. It's been a project we've had with many different sub-projects, from boundaries to capacity and so forth. Budget and the budget tool, promoting that, feedback support through site-based surveys and so forth, various school board activities that we promote, and then of course support for the PTA. Lots of decisions and letting people know about their opportunity to participate. In collaborating with the community, one of the key components for this is the APS Partnership Program. We also work closely with the Arlington Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, the Arlington Community Foundation, the Arlington County Department of Human Services, Arlington Family Network, and so forth. Partnerships are one of our strategic plan indicators for Goal 5, supporting the whole child. We track the number of partnerships in our schools, and we have 3 types: our resource, which give us financial or in-kind donation, service partners who actually come into the school and volunteer, and then our third group, which we call strategic partners. Those are the ones that sign agreements and really a written agreement. We know that the total here is 527 current partners. We can't grow that forever. So our goal has been over the last year to really emphasize the strategic partners. We really want people to write these agreements down so that they will last. So if a new principal comes in, they have a file that tells them what that partnership does. Or if somebody leaves a company or organization, the next person has a plan to follow. That has grown to, and I can't see it right now because of my glasses, it's to 176. Our goal by the end of the strategic plan is to be at 240. So with the growth, we believe that we will be there. And many of our schools are currently calling us saying, how do I do a strategic partnership agreement? So we're working with them. The last thing I'll mention is this 527 partnerships represent 661 relationships. That's because we have about 75 or 80 partners who are working with more than one school. And so we look at not just how many partners we have, but how many relationships that represents. And that's just a different way of looking at those numbers. Community connections, there are a whole lot of groups that we're working with, community organizations on behalf of Arlington Public Schools. And then at this point, I want to turn to a couple of colleagues. We have a lot of really great principals, and I started out saying, you know, a lot of the on-the-ground engagement is happening with the leadership of our principals. I was lucky to have two of our stars who were willing to come in tonight after a long day and talk a little bit. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Colin and Lynn to say a few words.
A little tall for this.
We'll move it down. We'll move it down.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Murphy, executive leadership team. Dr. Wright and I have been asked to share with you tonight information about how the School and Community Relations Office supports us as building principals. Specifically, we'd like to share with you how we are supported on our efforts to maintain school-based family engagement at the school level. We appreciate this opportunity. During our brief remarks, and they will be brief, during our brief remarks, we'd like to touch on 4 areas. Ms. Erdos did also touch on these areas as she spoke earlier. The first is the department's support of new principals as they transition to school assignments. Second is the department's support of schools as they communicate with their communities. Third, the department's support of schools in times that require communication that may be more sensitive in nature. Fourth is the department's support of schools as students enter and transition between grades and programs. And finally, fifth, the office's support of the schools through the training and development of school public relations liaisons. Number 1, in relation to the transition for new principals to new schools, the School and Community Relations Office provides significant support related to community engagement with assistance in the creation of the principal's entry plans, which are key, and with all communications with the school community and school staff prior to and during the transition. Number 2, the School and Community Relations Office supports the schools in the area of community engagement on a daily basis with written, paper, and electronic communications. As we all know, APS School Talk is the basis of many district and school communications. At McKinley, for example, in our ongoing effort to collaborate with the PTA in support of engaging the community, the office supports us by providing the mechanism through which I can disseminate our weekly newsletter called the Cardinal Notes. The newsletter is produced jointly by the PTA president and me, and allows us to speak in one voice as we work to communicate with all our parents. Thirdly, the Office of School and Community Relations supports schools during times requiring increased sensitivity. The office provides direction in handling school crises. The office provides guidance with the creation and framing of verbal, written, and electronic messages. Then, they assist schools with making the decision as to which communication tools would be best to use effectively to get the communication across to the community. For example, the department was extremely helpful, and it's been mentioned tonight, in engaging families during the recent More Seats for More Students elementary boundary discussion, producing all written and electronic communications and updates related to the process, and assisting in its facilitation. At this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Wright.
Definitely going to have to lower this. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Murphy, executive leadership team. I am Dr. Lynn Wright, the principal of Oak Ridge Elementary School, and I thank you for your time this evening. The Department of School and Community Relations assists at the district level and at individual schools with student academic planning. For example, the department hosts an annual district-wide information night for kindergarten families that is well attended and received. Families who tour the schools after attending this information night frequently comment on the excitement of the evening. Additionally, the department supports similar transition meetings at the middle and high school levels. The department creates and distributes all documents and forms to help families enter and transition between different educational programs. This year, the Office of School and Community Relations has partnered with the Department of Student Services to support academic planning at the individual school level. A team comprised of members of both departments has visited a number of schools to explain pre-K through 12th grade academic planning to families. Specifically, the Office of School and Community Relations has been providing this presentation in Spanish to families throughout our community. At Oak Ridge, our Comida y Conversación parent group particularly appreciated the department's efforts explaining academic planning in Spanish. Additionally, the Department of School and Community Relations assists at the district level and at individual schools with public relations and developing partnerships. The department trains and supports public relation liaisons who correspond throughout the year. Because of this relationship, schools are better able to communicate with each other and the community. The department coordinates the distribution of various publications that highlight and celebrate many of our innovative accomplishments as individual schools and as a district. Further, the department is a significant force in fostering positive relationships with community partners who contribute so much to our schools. Specifically at Oak Ridge, our PR liaison and Mosaic coordinator, Donna Minarsala, and I met with Ms. Erdos to discuss communication lines to increase community outreach for our school in support of our students' learning. After this meeting, we had a better understanding of the many communication tools available and the countless ways we can use them. As you can see, the Department of School and Community Relations plays a vital role in our individual schools. We thank both you and them for your continued support of our students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Board colleagues? Oh,
Let me-
sorry.
I'll very quickly wrap up, just as far as where we're going from here. Obviously, I mentioned social media will continue to play a part, and we're going to look at ways of expanding that and expanding language services. TV programming, you heard tonight, for the first time, we're going to broadcast graduation because we think that's an important part for families. And many of our families who have people who live out of town or out of the country, so they can see it on the web. We want to continue to work in the professional development. I am always amazed when I speak with administrators who say, you know, when I took my degree in education administration, nowhere in there did I have any coursework in how to communicate with families. So it's critical to continue to provide that support for our school staff. As well as strengthening the support for the school-based PR liaisons, the webmasters, and the partnership coordinators in the schools. Pre-K 16 roadmap, you've heard about some of the parent academic planning courses, and we're looking at building a roadmap over the summer so that we have a leave behind tool for parents to refer to. More seats for more students will continue to occupy all of our time. New this summer, we're looking at developing and launching by the middle of the summer a new APS app. All of us have that cell phone or smartphone. The great thing is research shows that amongst Hispanic families, it is the largest growing body of cellular use. In fact, more Hispanic citizens have, or individuals have cell phones than other populations. So we know it's another way of reaching out to families, and one of the things Mr. Adjusamili and I have talked about is creating some Parent Academy workshops so that we can then go into schools and say, here's how the app works, here's how to get to Parent View, here's how Parent View works either in the media center or with their personal devices. So that will play into the Parent Academy as well. So there are a lot of things that will continue. I don't think we'll ever think that we're doing enough, but we continue to try to add to the variety of tools available for schools. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.